Welcome to Life Mastery Radio with Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey, the show that dives into the science of higher consciousness with inspiring topics such as abundance, intention, health, manifestation, love, and transformation. Join Todd, Jackie, and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery. It's all right here with stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Now, here's your hosts, Todd and Jackie.
Hey, it's another groovy day, and most of you already know why, but I'm going to tell you anyway. That's because when I get up in the morning before my feet hit the ground, I already decided the whole day is going to be a groovy day. And something might happen, something might change, but I always think back. I started out, I can change whatever's going on or think about it differently or turn it into a groovy thing. And that's what I do. And you could do it too. Try it. You'll like it. Mikey liked it. As always, I have my guest with me today. Oh, not my guest, my co-host. What am I thinking? I'm getting all wound up here, Jackie. Welcome. Hi, Jackie.
Hi.
Let me collect my thoughts a little bit.
I know we have little technical issues and it kind of throws you off your game, doesn't it?
Either that or I'm just feeling extra groovy today and being goofy. That's what it probably is.
How are you doing? Other than
I am
goofy?
doing groovy. I am groovy.
Groovy and goofy?
Groovy and goofy. I want to remind our listeners that today's show page is at www.lifemasteryradio.net or .com, whichever one you prefer. And any links that we happen to talk about or refer you to will be there after the show. We already have a link to our guest up on today's show page at www.lifemasteryradio.net. So go check it out after the show. My main point is you don't have to worry about writing anything down. So you can always just go there and find. And while you're there, sign up for the newsletter because Jackie creates a blog post about the show and anything that we talk about will be highlighted. And of course, it will entice you to go and check out the YouTube channel. Life Mastery Radio has a YouTube channel and you can go and actually listen to the show. So there you go. And while you're on the website, check out our books. Jackie has a book. Mm-hmm. I have a book. My book is right here. 6 keys to life mastery, and you're going to love it. It's a short read, and it will take you on a journey. Jackie has both of her books. Well, she was a contributor to the Heart. What's it called?
It was the Sing Your Heart Song Summit, but the book is called Heart Notes.
And she wrote a really cool Dear John letter to Lack. It's pretty cool. See you later, Lack.
Adios, amigos.
What else am I missing? How's things going, Jackie? How's things going with Speak Feed Lead project?
We are having fun getting kids on real stages. You know, this year, 2022, marked a shift in. We've been training kids now for years to develop their messages and speak up. But now we've had opportunity to actually put them on international stages and share their messages with the world. I've known for a long time how powerful their messages are. Now I'm excited that so many other people get to hear their messages as well. So we've got a summit that we're working on for mid-June, and we're getting 5 young men ready to speak for that. And it's fun listening to them.
How young are they?
10 to 30. But these particular young men I'm working with there's an 11-year-old as our youngest, and then we have an 18-year-old as our oldest right now.
And what are some of the topics they're talking about?
Charlie is going to be talking about kindness and compassion. And then we've got Samuel from Nigeria, who's going to be talking about families. And he's had a very traumatic family life. And so he's going to be talking about how to become closer as a family despite challenges that you face. We have Jacob, who's going to be talking about how to impact the lives of other people through your talents and your skills and how you do that.
That's so cool. Okay, so I mean, for our listeners out there, you can just imagine these kids speaking from their heart about these topics, and it's what's important to them. And so, Jackie, could you even have imagined that? Was this part of your vision?
I didn't know that I could envision this, and that's the beauty of it is I knew that kids needed to feel heard. And little by little, you take steps toward helping them achieve that and giving them opportunities to be heard. But a couple of years ago, summits weren't really a big thing. I think it's been since the pandemic that summits have become as big as they are. Yeah. And so, I don't have to move kids around the country to get them to different stages. It's a virtual setting and they just tune in from their own living room or bedroom or whatever. And so the opportunities were not something I could necessarily foresee, but I'm so happy that they've arrived.
Yeah, I can see the light in your eyes on how exciting this is and how expansive it is. And this thing, it can't do anything but keep growing. I just can't imagine it not growing.
Well, and the nice plus to speaking on these stages is we can create a transcript from their verbal messages that now becomes a chapter in a compilation book that we're putting together of our students' voices. So can you imagine being in, let's say, 9th, 10th grade, and you're starting to put together your college applications? And when one of those questions is, what are some of the things you've been involved in, clubs, sports, that kind of thing? And you can actually write on there, I have spoken on an international summit 3 times, and I'm also the contributing author to a best-selling book. I mean, can you imagine how powerful that is to put on an application?
It's like hitting the turbo boost button.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool.
It is very cool, and I've watched it from the inception, and that's even the more cool part. Or even cooler. No, it's really groovy. It's
groovy. It's totally groovy.
Alrighty then. I've already told you where you can find out more information. And are you ready, Jackie? I think this is your guest. So that means you have the introduction. Take it away.
I do. This is Talia Dashow with us today. And she feels that methods to stop procrastinating have never worked for her. And advice from people that would say, just do it, made her feel even worse for not doing it. I think we can feel for that. She has then developed methods to recognize her own little gremlin voice and how to use it to her advantage. So Talia is both a professional procrastination coach, meaning she's not coaching you on how to procrastinate better, but how to stop doing so. And she's also a creativity expert who helps people to play. Talia helps people use creativity to expand possibility. She's been coaching since 2001, helping people become more productive, procrastinate less, and even feel more joy. Talia also runs Creativity Club, which is a Zoom room where creativity games are played. We might even play some of those today. Talia has earned a Bachelor's of Arts in English at UC Berkeley. As she has also a certificate as a mediator and a certificate to facilitate Lego serious play. Have no idea what that is, but we're about to find out, because I think our focus today is not only going to be fun, because we're going to talk about procrastination, perfectionism, play, productivity, a whole bunch of PP words. And I'm excited to have her on the show today. So everybody, welcome Talia Dashow. Woohoo!
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
And Talia, were you on the Sing Your Heart Song Summit as well? Were you a presenter on that?
I was not, but I have done some work with Steve and Olivia before.
Olivia. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure where we had connected, but perhaps it was Speakers Playhouse.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're so glad to have you here.
Talia, creativity. I mean,
Yes.
That's the key. That's the key to happiness. It's the key to innovation.
Yeah.
And I get the sense that there isn't much emphasis put on creativity in younger generations today. Am I right or am I wrong?
I think that it's easy for people to start believing that they're not creative, that art classes, there's plenty of art classes that are like, okay, you have to create this piece of, you have to make your snowman have 3 body parts, and you're not allowed to make it have 7 body parts.
Yeah, a lot of rules and regulations.
And so if you do it wrong, then you're no good, and you don't. And so it's really, people can really develop this sense early on that they're no good at being creative, and they stop trying. And then add to that the sense that being creative means being really good at painting or dancing or music or something, like big C creativity. And people are like, I don't have a creative bone in my body. But the thing is, the person who most recently said that to me is an entrepreneur who created an entire business.
Right.
Right? Like, she's so creative.
Right.
There's so many ways to be creative with a small c, without the, not the big C creative, and use that creativity for innovation and for play and for possibility, and not get, helping yourself get unstuck from situations. And there's so much there, and people don't always recognize it.
Yeah, creativity is, it's a human trait. Everybody has it, so you can't think that you don't have it. And sometimes maybe it just means grab a box of crayons and a piece of paper and have a day, right?
Absolutely.
Well, so do some people then confuse creativity with artsy, like having talents in art? Is that maybe part of the problem?
That is part of the problem. Yeah. Okay. People will say, I can't draw, therefore I'm not creative, or I can't sing, therefore I'm not creative. And yet they might be really good at whipping up something in the kitchen without a recipe, or finding new ways to drive home to avoid the traffic, or finding ways to convince their kid to brush their teeth. I mean,
right. Yeah. And I think for me, I don't necessarily always feel creative, but maybe it's it's because of the idea that I have to be perfect at it. Because I remember years ago, I took a class. It was an art class, and we were going to create rugs out of a canvas-like material, and then we would paint our own designs on these rugs. And I remember creating this rug and painting on it, and I used some sort of a template or a picture or something to create the snow, what was it, a sunflower thing. And I looked at it later and I thought, that's kind of goofy. It's kind of immature and silly. And I actually used the rug in my kitchen for many years, but every time I look at it, I go, yeah, that's so elementary. That's kind of goofy. Maybe I should just throw that away. And I don't know that I convinced myself to do it right away, but eventually it went the way of all garbage. And so I didn't necessarily appreciate what I had done and the way that it did add to the decor of our home for a little while, even though, if my child had done that, I wouldn't have thrown it away, but it was easy to throw it away because I had done it. So what do you tell people like me who feel like what they do create isn't very good?
Well, did you enjoy the process?
Yeah, I met a few new people and had fun getting away from the house for an hour each week to take this class. So there were other benefits to it.
I find that a lot of people really want the end result to be perfect, and are unwilling to even try to start if it's not going to be perfect, or don't like the result if it's not perfect. But the process matters as much, and sometimes more, than the product.
Right.
I mean, obviously not if you are a professional musician or sculptor or surgeon or something. You want to be perfect as perfect as possible. But if you're just doing it for fun, then the process matters more than the end result. And so if you learned something, if you had some fun, if you had a chance to get out of your head and into the present moment using your hands, that's what matters way more than how it turns out in the end.
I think about that a lot because you're developing technique, right? So I might not be in the beginning a good woodworker and cutting wood and being accurate and knowing where to cut and how I want to cut it and getting those juices flowing. But if I do it multiple times, I then become good at it, right? Practice makes perfect, just like riding a bike. And a lot of people, I think, lose those steps and think, oh, I should be able to create a perfect piece right out of the gate, when it's in stages. So it's part of the process, or it's part of the journey, like you were saying, of creating something so that you learn the skills to be an expert.
Absolutely. And you don't have to commit to becoming an expert in order to do some of the skills.
And
right?
have fun, right?
You can have fun and just go a little way along the path. And then if you want to keep going, you'll just keep getting better as you do it. My husband is an artist. He draws, and he talks about everybody has 10,000 bad drawings in them. So you better get started.
Well, Talia, here's another flaw I have when it comes to creativity.
Yeah.
Is when I was 16, for my 16th birthday, I got a sewing machine. And so the senior year of high school, I had made all of my clothes, my own clothes. And yet I used patterns. So I started to think, well, I used a pattern. I didn't create anything. I just did what the pattern said, right? Maybe I chose the fabrics, but I just used the pattern. And I say the same thing about myself when it comes to cooking. I guess I'm a fairly good cook, but it's because I use a recipe really well. And so for me, some of the times I think, or I doubt my creativity, is because, well, I'm using a pattern. How can I go wrong? I'm using a pattern. Am I still creative even though I'm using somebody else's thing? I mean, I don't know.
There's more than one aspect to creativity. I mean, there's the aspect of creating something, which is what you are doing when you are sewing or cooking. You are creating something with your hands, making something exist in the world that didn't exist before. So that, in that sense, you are being creative. There's also the sense of creativity as sort of an expansive possibility, dreaming, bringing in more, like, it's sort of like a connecting the dots in a new way. So you have a dot of, I want to create some clothing, and you have a dot of, I want it to be a little bit funky, and then you have a dot of, I want to use that fabric. And then how do you connect the dots in a new way to make something new that's never existed before? That's a different kind of creativity.
Yeah.
And I mean, certainly when I work with people, I like to help people with that expansiveness, because I feel like it brings so much to people's lives to have that opening up of possibility. But it is not the only piece of creativity. You know, I crochet, and there's a lot of crochet that's not creative in the creating something new. I'm using the same stitches over and over and over and over and over.
Repetition.
But in the end, I create something.
Right.
Yeah. And it is uniquely yours. Even if someone else has used that same pattern to create something from it, it's not
you chose
not going to be the same.
You chose the pattern, you chose the color, you chose the design of the fabric. I mean, there's a lot of creativity that people may not recognize as creativity.
Yes, absolutely.
So what do you do then that draws this natural ability out of people that maybe they don't recognize as already in themselves?
Play-Doh. I'll make Play-Doh.
So when I actually got trained on Lego Serious Play, I started playing with Play-Doh to see if it would be a good substitute for people who didn't have Legos around. And I discovered that there's a lot of people who don't want to get their hands dirty. And Play-Doh is not a good substitute. And then also, like, the nice thing about using Legos is you already have some piece of it already existing. So if you're trying to build something, you're building it from existing pieces that already have some symbolism. And if you're trying to do something from Play-Doh, you've got nothing to start with. So it's sometimes it's nice to start someplace that people have something to work with. Like there's something that people have some experience with. I love having people coming into Creativity Club with me, because if there's a place, it gives us a chance to just play some games and start with things that people sort of know how to do. it's a safe place to take a creative risk because I'm not asking people to do something too dramatic, weird, and and also everybody there is doing it.
Yeah.
You know, I use this analogy of I used to go to a swimming pool where people who were fully clothed could look at the people who are in the swimming pool, and that never felt fair to me. Like, I'm willing to show up in a bathing suit when other people are also wearing bathing suits, because I figure no matter how beautiful they are, everybody has their own insecurities about showing up. Right? So we're all kind of in the same boat. But when people who are fully clothed, they're sitting there and watching, I'm like, that's just not fair. So
Right.
we don't have any observers. Everybody's a participant. So everybody is sort of in the same boat, and it makes it a safer space for people to be able to try something.
How long have you been doing that?
And that actually is a pandemic thing. I started it to try to play with my friends when I couldn't get together with people in person, and it's become international. It's
Wow. Cool. So how many people typically are in a creativity play group that you have? And this is weekly, right?
This is weekly. It's drop-in free weekly Thursday afternoons or evenings or middle of the night, depending where you are. I would say there's usually between like 3 and 8 people who show up. I have almost 100 on my email list, but mostly they don't come.
Yeah.
But it's a nice size group to be, so everybody gets to participate and gets to play.
Nice and intimate, right? And everybody has some input. And so you dropped the word about Legos, and we really haven't discussed that. You are a certified Lego consultant. So
it's called Lego Serious Play. When I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up, which was a very, very long process for me.
Isn't it for most?
Some really smart people suggested that I look at what I already bring to everything that I do, and they helped me figure out that I'm bringing play and creativity and community building to all the jobs I've had, all of the things I do. Is just what I do. It's part of my DNA. So I started looking at where do people, like, is there play at work? And I discovered Lego Serious Play. So I flew to Canada to get trained in it because there wasn't anybody training closer. And for some reason, my family didn't want me to fly to Europe without them. So
I'll go to Canada.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Mom.
Go to Canada. That's all right. You'll come back.
So this is an actual class that you take.
Well, it's Lego developed it. Apparently, the story is that Lego said, we have a product that's really very creative, but our corporate meetings are not. So what can we do about that? So they hired some people who understood about how the brain works and how the brain relates to the hands, and how do you build and how you can access what you know with your hands. And then you can hold your story in the model, so you don't have to hold it up here in your head, and that makes it easier to listen to other people. Plus you can listen with your eyes because you can see the model that they built, and it's easier to understand each other. And then you can take the things that you've built and put them together and create something new for all that everybody in the room is participating to create something together. So some really powerful, really practical things can come out of it. It actually can be serious work. I found it hard to have it become a business because a lot of the bosses heard play and thought that was the opposite of work and wouldn't ever.
Right.
I can just imagine showing up in a boardroom with a bag of Legos.
I know, right?
But I have an acquaintance, and she, before the pandemic, she would show up in boardrooms with coloring books and crayons and other things. And it was highly popular to get these guys and gals who, are serious all day long to just sit down and play. And I'm sure you're experiencing the same thing.
Yeah. And in addition to getting to play, there was also getting to communicate and getting to.
I was just going to say that it opens lines of communication. And and finding similarities and common interests. And Jackie and I belong to an organization that spurs that kind of communication too. You know, Toastmasters International is really big on it because people give speeches about things they're passionate about, and it turns out some of the audience members are passionate about that too, and so it creates a connection.
Yeah, I spent some time in Toastmasters as well.
You're a Toastmaster?
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, Toastmasters. 2 weeks in a row, we've had Toastmasters on the show.
I guess so. Both Jackie and I climbed the Toastmasters ladder all the way to district director. She was the district governor. I was the district director.
Yeah.
And that's why. And then we became plain old Toastmasters, POTS. And what else do POTS do? But they start a podcast.
Right.
And they play a little bit. So
Talia,
tell our audience how they might be included in this Thursday Creativity Club. Is there a link you can share with them?
If you go to my website, you can access it there.
Okay.
You can go to my mailing list, and I'll send you the link. It's also on Eventbrite, but I need to warn you that the Eventbrite link is not accurate because we had some Zoom bombers.
Oh.
And so the Eventbrite will get you onto my mailing list, and then I will send you the correct link.
So what's your website then?
It is subscribepage.com/Talia.
Subscribepage.com/Talia. Okay.
I think that link is up on our show page today at lifemasterradio.net or .com. So you don't have to worry about writing it down. Just go there and check it out. So what else are we missing, Talia? We haven't really talked about procrastination. And I know in the lead-in, we were enticed with this little voice in our head. Tell us a little bit about what is that voice and who is it, and how do we identify it?
So I think you're talking about the Gremlin Voice.
The Gremlin Voice.
That we're no good, we can't do it, and we shouldn't even try that voice. Yeah. I like to name that voice because when I name it, it makes it easier for me to differentiate that voice from the voice of something that's more like guidance. So I call my own gremlin Cruella de Vil.
That's creative.
Everybody has their own name for their gremlins. I've heard Mephistopheles. I've heard people's middle school bully name as the name for their gremlin. There's a wide range of what people do. And I just want to put out there, you don't need the perfect name right now. You can use a placeholder name until you come up with a better one. So I know that a lot of people have this perfectionistic streak and they don't want to do it until it's perfect.
Hey, I just came up with the name of mine.
Oh yeah, what's that?
The ungroovy one.
There you go.
Anti-groove.
So when I'm hearing voices in my head that are saying, you're no good, you shouldn't try this, who's going to listen to you, why, what's the point? I can say, oh, that's Cruella de Vil talking, or that's the ungroovy one talking. And I know that helps me know that in the moment, I don't have to take it seriously. I mean, that at some point I want to have
an awareness thing.
Yeah. At some point, it's really useful to have a conversation with that voice, because the truth is that this part of you is there to protect you. And knowing what it is that this part of you is trying to protect you from can be really useful.
So it's part of the ego? Would you say?
It's not a language that I use, so maybe. It's like, so people have a very visceral need for approval from other people. Mm-hmm. And at one point in our development as a species, we were part of a very small tribe and we depended on each other a lot to survive. And if you got kicked out of your group, you could die hungry and alone and mauled by bears, right? So it was a big deal to be accepted by the group. The thing is that right now, not only do very few people ever get mauled by bears, we still have that same level of survival fear around things that are no longer survival level situations. So that voice is sort of that survival level fear saying, oh my God, someone's going to laugh at you. Someone's not going to like you. Someone's going to think you're no good and you're going to get kicked out and die hungry and alone and mauled by bears.
Yeah.
It's a very visceral feeling. It's not, I mean, I don't blame anybody for having it. This is part of being human. The challenge is to say, okay, right now I'm not in a survival level situation. Someone might not like what I'm saying, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to get kicked out. It means I need to find the people who do like what I'm saying, right? Like you just aren't going to resonate with everybody, and that's okay. So
how does that relate
so real
to
in today's world?
Go ahead, Todd.
I was just saying that's so prevalent in our society today, and a lot of people, you know, I don't want to go off in the weeds, but they move away and hide and cower because they don't belong to that group or they don't resonate with that group.
There's a lot of groups now. You know what? I mean, it isn't just one option anymore.
Right.
There's a lot of places to belong.
Well, and like you say, our innate need to belong is so strong within us that we sometimes are dishonest with ourselves in order to belong.
Others.
We compromise our self-respect and our authenticity to belong to a group and be accepted by them. Right. That's the real danger of it.
Integrity.
Yeah. So is that what is related mostly to a perfectionism, or is that also related to procrastination and creativity somehow?
Everything's connected somehow. I mean,
yeah.
I definitely see that the fear of what other people will think is part of perfectionism, is part of, if I do it perfectly, then nobody can object and I will be safe and appreciated. And that's also part of procrastination of if I can't do it perfectly, I'm going to put it off until I can do it perfectly, but then we're human and imperfect beings, and so it might never happen. And it's, I just got myself totally lost in that sentence.
Well, why don't we go back to something a little more positive? And okay. Can we do a little play?
Oh yeah.
Can we demonstrate what one of your play activities might look like at your creativity club?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the great thing about play is that it gives you a chance to practice being a little more flexible and expanding your thinking and opening up possibility. And it's fun. So one of the games that we play a lot in Creativity Club is a 4-letter word sentence. So we pick a 4-letter word and we all work from the same 4-letter word, not that kind of 4-letter word. Letter word, and we come up with a 4-word sentence that's based with each letter starting with one of those letters. So if the word were time, you could use the sentence, "This is my example," and this starts with T, it starts with I, my starts with M, example starts with E. So what word should we use for today?
I think we picked lead.
Lead. Excellent. Lead. So the letters we have to work with are L-E-A-D. So let's come up with a few possibilities. Maybe lemurs, exude, ample diamonds.
About longshoremen, eat and drink.
Go.
Leaders execute action daily.
Ooh,
nice. One of the things that I find really fun about this is that the sentences that aren't like grammatically correct can often be the most interesting ones.
Yeah.
One of the things that I see over and over again in Creativity Club is people saying, I don't like what I did, but I like what everybody else did. And so people will say, well, I don't like my sentence because it didn't have a verb in it, or it didn't make sense. But the ones that don't make sense are often the ones that have the most interesting imagery, or that you really paint a picture that you wouldn't get if you were just trying to come up with something that was really ordinary. So this is my example, is a perfectly good sentence, but it's really boring. You know what I mean? So it's kind of fun to try to go for the more interesting
Off the wall is what you're saying.
Yeah. And it's all good. You can't do it wrong.
Yeah,
that's one of the things that I say over and over in Creativity Club. You can't do it wrong. You're just playing.
Right.
It's pretty hard to take a 4-letter word and calculate the acronym for it and get it grammarily, is that the word? Grammarily correct, all in that short amount of time.
Yeah. Is there a given time frame where this sentence has to be completed? Is it within like 10 seconds or something?
We spend a minute or two writing down sentences, and everybody writes down whatever they come up with, and then we all share what we've come up with. And sometimes people will have 1 or 2, and sometimes people will have 6 or 8. It depends on.
That sounds like a great Toastmaster game.
Well, I tell you, in our courses with the kids, we play a word at a time proverb. And so we go around the room, even though it's a virtual stage, we go around the room and everybody contributes 1 word to crafting this proverb. And we come up with some real inspirational, off the wall kind of phrases, but everybody's contributed to it. And that's what makes it important, because we've created, like you say, we've created something together. We've created a wise, timeless phrase that may or may not make sense, but it was fun to do together.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
So should we try another word?
Sure. Or you want to just,
we're looking for like 4-letter word.
We could still come up with some more words, more sentences for the same word if you like.
Lead. Okay.
Yeah.
Life edifies apples diametrically. Even though
I love it.
How about let's educate adults daily.
Nice.
That is kind of fun. And so typically you would have them just write out sentences and then share with the group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is, even if some people come up with the same word in one of their sentences, nobody ever comes up with the same sentence.
Right.
Right.
The possibilities are,
the possibilities are so vast.
Yeah. Huh. Cool. And so how long is this class? Or this creativity club? Is it an hour each week?
It's an hour. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I want to get back to Legos for a minute.
All right.
I want to understand how this process works. So what's in my head, what's in my vision is you show up with a bag of Legos, dump it out on a table and say, go for it. Or do you give some kind of direction?
There's more structure than that.
Yeah.
We start out with everybody having a small bag of Legos and everybody has the same Legos in it. And it starts with build a tower. And
so there is some direction, and then
everybody builds their own tower. And then we look around and are they all valid towers? Some are tall, some are more solid and shorter, and some are symmetrical, and some are sprouting things off in every direction. But they're all valid towers.
Yeah.
And then how can you make the tower represent you? And it's because we're trying to move towards metaphor. This is why we do it with adults. Is that
right.
Kids are going to build spaceships and trains and things like that. But adults can build metaphor and ideas and that kind of thing. So we start sort of smaller. And then there's one assignment that I just adore, which is you build whatever you want, but then you're told that it is something else. And you have to describe it as though it were something else. And you can start to see how quickly you can come up with a story based on what you've built. So somebody might build the the pool that they just put into their backyard or something like that. And then it turns out that it's actually the concept of fear. And they have to somehow describe the concept of fear using the model that they built. And they can do it. I mean, there's just, our brains are just that flexible and able to do it. And then we get to go to the big dump of Legos where you have all the possible Legos to build with. But at that point, there's also some other thing that we're trying to accomplish. So
I listened to a podcast where you described it, and I thought it was very amazing. Is you instructed them to create their organization, and then where they fit in that organization and how their organization fit in the world with Legos.
You can do that. Yeah, I mean, you can do strategic planning with Legos. You can build your company and build the things that affect your company in the outside world. Connect your model, your company to the forces out in the world, and then run scenarios through that model and see where it breaks. You can say, well, what happens if our main supplier has supply chain issues, and then you yank that piece out of the model and something breaks. So, okay, what are you going to do if that happens? So you can figure out potential problems before they happen.
That's something I noticed in the younger generations is that there isn't really a problem solving component that's a part of their lives, right? Everything's been figured out, everything's been solved, and mom knows the answer. So these young people aren't really getting those skills. Is that something you've noticed too, or not so much?
Not so much. I mean, I have a kid, and my kid is like, yeah, there's a lot that's been figured out and a lot that they can just reference online. And, I don't know how to do a thing, so I can either ask or watch a video or something like that. But there's also a certain amount of, well, what is it that I need and how can I get that need met? And that's going to be unique for everybody. And I think that there's still a problem solving aspect to
what goes on, even with social media, finding that exact answer, like you said, watching that video. I even do that. How do I do this? And 9 times out of 10, actually 10 times out of 10, there's a video on it on how to do it.
Yeah.
So should we talk about procrastination now, or should we wait? Maybe we should wait. Maybe we shouldn't talk about procrastination.
We're almost out of time. I think we had
I don't know. Maybe we could probably wait for the next show.
We talked a little bit about it already, Jackie, so you're a little late to the party.
I know, but we didn't talk about how you solve it. Because I know, Talia, you had a history, it sounds like, of wanting to overcome the procrastination you were experiencing, not finding the best tool for that. So you developed your own. Is it what we've been talking about? And if so, well, how does that help procrastination?
Creativity actually is a major part of what I do to deal with procrastination. And there's a couple of major ways that it helps. I find that when perfectionism is the piece that is getting in my way the most, or when my clients weigh the most, when it's like, it has to be perfect before I can start, it's really hard to hold on to that mindset and also hang on to the mindset of what happens if I try this? So going into something creative and saying, what happens if I try this? What happens if I do that? What's it going to look like if I doodle it this way, or sew that, or cook the other thing, or like just play with something? And just that process of, I just want to explore and play and see what happens, can really help break you out of that it has to be perfect kind of mentality. So that's definitely one of the tools that I use.
And that plays into when you're deciding to create something. So I can see that if I'm thinking, I need to write a book. I need to start writing my book. I need to get that book written, but I just don't have enough stories yet. So I'm going to wait because it's not perfect in my head yet. So I got to wait till I have this perfect inspiration and time to go forward. I can see how that works then. But what if it's like, I need to get off this couch and go take the garbage out? I mean, how does creativity overcome that aspect of procrastination when it's a task that needs to be done, but you just don't want to do it? Does it work the same way?
Probably not.
Okay. So we're talking about procrastination as it relates to creating something new or entrepreneurial type skills, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's also an element of procrastination is a way for your subconscious to talk to you.
Mm.
And it takes some creativity sometimes to be able to figure out what is going on there. And that's one reason I like to name that gremlin voice, because sometimes talking to that gremlin voice can give me a lot of information about what it is that I am procrastinating about. I can find out what I'm afraid of, and then figure out if those fears are valid, and figure out what I can do to mitigate those fears. And then it makes it easier to move forward. Or maybe I really don't have all the information yet, and it's too soon to move forward with the project. And maybe I'm not ready. Maybe I just need some more time. Or maybe the thing that I have a greater need for rest in this moment than I have a need to take out the garbage. But in half an hour, that might be different. So being able to pay attention to what is my need for rest in the moment compared to the need to take out the garbage, and figuring out, well, this can wait for a little while. Let me rest first, and then I will have the energy to take out the garbage later. Being able to have that conversation with yourself and notice that I'm procrastinating because I'm exhausted and I need a break before I can do another thing. So it could be helpful to just know that this is information.
You're describing an awareness, or even something that I was taught is a third-party perspective of being a witness to all of the factions that are going on and validating it.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes I actually have my clients make a list of all the parts of themselves and talk to each one of them, not just like the voice that says you're no good, you can't do it, but talk to the part of yourself that still feels like they're 6 and they're scared, and talk to the part of yourself that still feels like they're a teenager and rebellious. Talk to the part of yourself that is a wise elder, no matter what your age is. Talk to the part of yourself that feels generous, and also the part that feels jealous. All these parts have valid information to share with about what you need and where you are in the world.
Fascinating. That's cool.
And if the part of you that's rebellious or jealous or scared doesn't get their needs met, you're going to procrastinate a lot more. So, knowing what each part of you needs and helping them get it can help smooth the way for a lot of stuff.
And I would imagine the benefit, right? Do you have that discussion about the benefit? If I do this, then this, or is there even a reward system that you incorporate? If I do this, then I'll get this. I do that to myself a lot. If I accomplish this task, then I'll allow myself to do this, or to look at that, or to read this.
I think everybody does that to a certain extent. I think people do it naturally, enough that I don't usually incorporate that into the coaching that I do, but I'm
normal. You hear that, Jackie? I'm just like other people.
They don't know you like I do. Well, it's interesting, Talia. I just was talking with a friend the other day who has some anxiety over social issues. So she has some fear of just being around people. And another friend offered her some advice, and she said, go out and buy your favorite chocolate and start rewarding yourself with little pieces of chocolate for every scary thing you do. For instance, maybe you start by just opening up your front door and walking out in the front yard and standing there for a few minutes. Give yourself a piece of chocolate if you do that. Now, if you can walk down the street and say hi to somebody, give yourself another piece of chocolate. And so that's how we can start to overcome some of those things, is like Tom was saying, is have a reward system, something like that. And quit worrying about we have to do it perfectly. just do it, right? Doing it is better than doing it perfectly. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Done is better than perfect.
There we go.
Absolutely. And that's also why I created Creativity Club as so being an inclusive, safe space, because people need a safe place to take risks. It's people, I mean, there's a lot of ways that it is risky, legitimately risky to show up in the world as yourself and risk rejection and risk people not wanting to work with you. And, you know, it's that there's real legitimate fear. And so giving people a place to be able to take a safe risk and try something out where they know they can't do it wrong makes it easier to take that risk, any kind of risk out in the world when there's more at stake.
Right. Oh my goodness, ladies, it looks like we only have about 4 minutes left. Is there anything that we're missing, Talia? Is there something else you would like to let our audience know about? They can visit your website. The link's at lifemasteryradio.net or .com. It will also be in the newsletter if you sign up for it. Is there anything else that comes to your mind?
Well, you know, I do work with clients. I'm busy recording a class that I'm going to be putting up online pretty soon. And I've got a summer solstice creative soul spa coming up on June 25th. So that'll be another place where people can come and play. And if your soul needs a spa day, we'll have creativity games and laughter yoga and journaling.
So this is a Zoom spa day.
Zoom spa day. We have people from, I think, 6 different states participating. So yeah, it can't really be in person.
Nice. Yeah.
No, it's just interesting that you call it that, because Zoom has pretty much changed, or as you heard Jackie say, it's pretty much changed the way we show up in the world and the way we show ourselves and the way we authenticate ourselves. And now I've heard about a spa day on Zoom. That's interesting.
Well, Laughing Yoga by Olivia Vu, or Vo, I think it's Vo, is amazing. I never, when she first said it aloud, I'm thinking, this can't be, but I've actually used it with my students a few times, and it definitely breaks up the monotony. It breaks up the boredom. It helps you to move on to a more creative state. It is absolutely fabulous. So if you attend it for even just that alone, you're going to come away with tremendous benefit. And I'm sure that Talia's information that she's going to share on that same day is going to be tremendous as well. So do they find out about that on the same site, the same URL as before?
Yes, I will post something there, and also on LinkedIn and Facebook as soon as I have it, all the details.
Excellent.
I'm still dreaming it up. So
she's still creating it, right? It's still being created.
It is.
With the Lego block creation idea.
Very cool. Thank you, Talia, for showing up as you today and sharing your thoughts and ideas. I think we've all been inspired, and
thanks so much for having me on. This is that
ungroovy one is going out my ear. I'm going to poke him right out my ear.
Or, have a conversation with him, find out what he's there for.
I should have said that.
And then kick him out.
Thank you again so much. Jackie, any takeaways? This was a fun show.
Yes, I'm learning that procrastination and perfectionism, bad. Play and creativity, good. That's what I learned today. So do more of the latter.
And there'll be more about that, I'm sure, in our newsletter that you can sign up for at www.lifemasteryradio.net or .com. That's about all we have time for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope that my hope is that you'll tell a friend about the show and how cool it is. There's these 2 people, they're just a couple of goofballs, but they always have some inspiring guest that is on the cutting edge of their own becoming and showing you how to be on the edge of your own becoming with their thoughts and ideas. Lastly, here's the deal. There's a couple of choices that you can make, and these are all about choices. You can choose to go and play with Talia, because she'd just love to play with you and show you some really cool things. And you can choose to make it a great day, because those 2 things, it's all about choice. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Life Mastery Radio. Join Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery through stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Visit their website, www.lifemasteryradio.com. Join their mailing list and be notified about upcoming guests. That's lifemasteryradio.com.